May 2015, 2058-11. May 2015, 2058-11. 1. Chose any two of the following passages from the Quran, and A. Briefly describe the main themes in each passages. 4. B. Briefly explain the importance of the themes in a Muslim's life today. 4. ANS. A. Themes. 1. 2:30-37. These verses describe the story of the purpose of creation of humankind and its superiority over other creatures due to the gift of knowledge. God told his angels about appointing his vicegerent Khalifa on the earth. He also told them the reason of the elevated status of Adam, who was granted the knowledge of the names of all things. Angels were then commanded by God to prostrate before Adam. All obeyed God except Iblis, who, driven by arrogance, disobeyed God. This proves that Iblis was not an angel but a jinn. Adam and his wife Eve were sent to paradise for a comfortable living as well as testing their free will. Their Iblis, now titled Satan, successfully persuaded them to disobey God, as mentioned in another surah. Then began Satan to whisper suggestions to them. 720, Al-Raf, repentance of both was, however, accepted by God, who asked them to shift to the earth for a new phase of life. Muslims are thus instructed to beware of Satan in order to strengthen their relation with God. 2. 5:110. This surah was revealed in Medina with many subject matters including the interfaith dialogues. This verse presents the conversation between God and Jesus Christ on the Day of Judgment. God's address to Jesus confirms his prophethood and negates the corrupted belief of making him Son of God. God reminds Jesus his special favors on him and granting him miraculous powers. The purpose of reminding is to make him grateful to God. Miraculous birth of Jesus without involving a father, his ability to cure the blind and the leper, giving life to the dead and the lifeless objects, and finally God protecting him from crucifixion are mentioned to prove that Jesus was a servant of God, and by no means his son. The verse also outlines the granting of divine knowledge and wisdom to Jesus. There is repetition of by my leave in the verse as it refers to God's unusual powers and his will to grant prophetic signs to his chosen men. 3. Surah 108. Theme of this surah is God's special love and care for the Holy Prophet. This is the shortest surah revealed in the early Makkan period. The Prophet was mocked by the Makkans on the death of his second son, Abdullah from Hazrat Khadijah. On hearing this, his uncle Abu Lahab came out of his house saying, Batara Muhammadan, that means Muhammad has been cut off, of future hope. Other pagans also began to mock him. The Prophet then received this surah that gave him the glad tiding of their abundance. The word abundance carries multiple meanings that include the moral qualities of the Prophet, his followers, the prophethood, the Quran, his knowledge and wisdom. It also refers to a specially blessed river in paradise that he had seen in his Miraj journey. He, and by his way all Muslims, were asked to establish regular prayer and to develop the spirit of sacrifice so that he could continuously strengthen his bond with God and to get constant divine support. The last verse promised destruction of the Prophet's enemies who are no more remembered in a good way. B. Importance of the themes. 1. 2:30-37. These verses tell Muslims about God's wisdom behind creating Adam as first human as well as first prophet who received divine guidance. Thus began the history of humankind and the institute of prophethood. Humans, because of God's bounty of knowledge, began to dominate the world in all domains of life. However, due to their free will, they may go astray under the satanic temptations. Therefore, God made arrangements for their guidance to the right path. Muslims need to acknowledge the purpose of their creation, their supreme status as well as Satan's enmity towards them. All humans are born pure, but it's Satan who can misguide them. Muslims, therefore, should be grateful to God and be alert about their perpetual enemy, Satan. They should also remember that if they commit sins but express repentance on it, they can hope forgiveness by God. This is testified by this Hadith Qudsi, truly my mercy overcomes my wrath. 2. 5:110. This verse shows God's powers, his love and care for his messengers as well as other humans. The special blessings of God on Jesus Christ prove his strong relationship with his chosen men, who in turn became a source of guidance for their communities. He gave the book and the wisdom to Jesus as he gave the same to other messengers so that they could tell their people their purpose of living. The Quran reminds Muslims that all such unusual powers and miraculous happenings are under God's will, and whatever of blessings and good things you have, it is from God. 1653, Al-Nahl, his miraculous powers to cure the disabled people show how much God is concerned about his servants. God granted health, knowledge, wisdom and a healthy family life to humans. So, they need to acknowledge all these bounties by expressing gratitude to him. This will keep them on the path of obedience to God and earning his pleasure. 3. Surah 108. This passage, like Surah 93, teaches Muslims to have faith in God's support that surely reaches the noble people. The Holy Prophet was assured of abundance in the face of persecutions in Mecca. Muslims need to remember this surah in times of difficulties. They should not worry about their losses but instead should focus on whatever God has given them. God's greatest blessing on Muslims is that they are the Ummah community of the last messenger of God who was given the last divine book, the Quran. They should be thankful to him for this great favor. They should try to comprehend and follow the teachings of Quran in order to avail the abundance of its spiritual and moral benefits. They should remember God in all circumstances. The best way of remembering him is regular prayer as commanded by the Quran, and establish regular prayer in order to remember me. 2014, Toha. The surah teaches Muslims to be ready for any type of sacrifice that too brings them closer to God. 2a. The angel Jibril brought the revelation of the Quran to the Prophet Muhammad at different times and places. Give examples to show how this took place. 10b. What was the significance of the Prophet being given the revelation by word rather than in writing? 4. A. The Quran was revealed in parts to the Prophet, from 610 to 632 AD, over a period of 22 years, 6 months and 14 days. The first revelation, first 5 verses of Surah 96, Al-Alaq, was sent in Ramadan 610 AD, in the cave Hira. After this the revelation stopped for a period of about 6 months. The Prophet felt quite restless during this interval, Fatra al-Wahi, till Angel Jibril brought the second revelation, 74:1-7, Al-Madatha, that commanded him to start his prophetic mission. Then again there was a bit longer gap during which the Makkans ridiculed him by saying that his Lord had abandoned him. The Prophet then received Surah 93, Al-Duha, that contained reassurance by God. After this, he received revelations in relatively quick succession. They included divine commands of preaching Islam to his relatives, 26:214, Al-Shu'ara. Then came the revelation about inviting the Makkans publicly, and expound openly by what you have been commanded. 15 hours 94 minutes, Al-Hijr, he would often receive revelation without a warning while he was busy in addressing his companions. The Quran refers to this as, surely, it is for us to have you commit it to in your memory and recite it. And so when we recite it, follow its recitation attentively. Then it will be for us to explain it. 75:16-19, Al-Qiyamah, however, he also received revelations in special circumstances, as Babu el-Nuzul or context. Surah 112, Al-Ikhlas, was revealed in response to the Makkan queries about the nature and origin of God. Similarly, Surah 18, Al-Kahf, was revealed when the Prophet was questioned about the people of the cave. Surahs 53, Al-Najm, and 94, Al-Inshra, were revealed to console the Prophet in difficult times. During his journey of Hijrah, he received 940, Al-Tawbah, that mentioned God's support for him. After his migration to Medina, he received revelations about the pillars of Islam and social conduct of the Muslim community. Surahs 2, Al-Baqarah, 3, Al-Imran, 4, Al-Nisa, and 5, Al-Ma'idah, contain most of these details. God sent revelations regarding family laws, crime and punishment, haram and halal foods and interaction with non-Muslims, including verses about jihad qaital. Receiving the revelation was usually a hard experience for the Prophet. Usually, Angel Jibrail appeared in the form of a companion, Dihya al-Kalbi, whom many other companions were able to identify. According to Sunnah, this was the easiest and most painless way of revelation. Only occasionally, the Prophet encountered Jibrail in his true form. For example, while returning from the cave Hira, he saw Hazrat Jibrail with his wings covering the entire horizon. During his journey of Miraj, he saw the angel again as mentioned in the Quran, while he was at the highest horizon. Then he came near and hovered around. He was within 2 bows length or closer. He saw him on another descent. At the lote tree of the extremity. 53:7-9, 13-14, Al-Najm. During the same journey, while conversing with God, the last 2 verses of Surah Al-Baqarah were revealed to him as one of God's gifts for him. The Prophet is reported to have received revelation in dreams, Ruya al-Siddiqa. These dreams always came to be true afterwards. An example of this is the Prophet's dream of entering the sacred mosque in 6 the year he signed the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. The Quran testified to this event in 3 verses of Surah 48, Al-Fath. Hazrat Aisha said, "The Prophet did not see any vision, but it came like the bright gleam of dawn." Sahihain. Moreover, the revelations were directly blown into his heart, as stated in a hadith. Ru'ul Quds blew the following into my heart: no soul will die before consuming his sustenance. Finally, Hazrat Jibrail often brought revelation without being seen by the Prophet. In this mode of receiving revelation, the Prophet would hear the sound of ringing of bells. This was the hardest way of coming of revelation, as stated by the Prophet. It sometimes came with a sound like the sound of a bell. That is the hardest one to me. Sahih Bukhari. During such episodes there was an unusual increase in the body weight of the Prophet. His camel, Kaswa, could be seen to be collapsing if he received revelation while riding it. Hazrat Zayd bin Thabit reported that once he and the Prophet were asleep in the Prophet's mosque. The Prophet was resting his leg on Zayd's thigh. After a while, Hazrat Zayd suddenly woke up as he felt his thigh bone was about to crack because the Prophet was receiving revelation at that time. The Prophet was often seen sweating in winters and shivering in summers while revelation came to him by this way. B. The Quran was revealed on the Prophet who had not acquired any formal education. This is described in the Quran as, "Have faith then in God and in His Messenger, the unlettered Prophet." 7:158, Al-Raf. So, the Quran was revealed in the form of scattered verses. The word Quran carries many meanings, and one of its roots is Qira'at or recitation. That is why the first word of the first revelation is Iqra, that means read or recite. Thus, unlike previous books, one way of its preservation was that the Quran will remain a book of recitation, too, in addition to be translated and explained. Recitation of the Quran is a special art, tajweed, and it is a source of earning reward by God. Moreover, it has a miraculous impact on its listeners. Hazrat Umar, a man with a strong poetic sense, was moved by the recitation of Surah Toha, and decided to embrace Islam. 3a. Write about the changes in the relationship between the Prophet and the Quraysh in the years between his marriage to Khadija and the death of Abu Talib. 10b. Why is it significant that the Quraysh were still willing to keep their belongings with the Prophet after he started to preach Islam? 4. A. The Prophet had established his repute as Al-Sadiq the truthful and Al-Amin the trustworthy, well before he married Hazrat Khadija. As a result of expanding her trade with honesty and fair play, his image was enhanced as a noble man in Mecca. He remained aloof from idol worship, indecencies, and immoral practices that had plagued the society of Mecca, and this further strengthened his repute in the eyes of the Meccans. Many Qurayshites used to give their belongings to him without the least degree of distrust or doubt about his conduct. The Prophet, in his adulthood, emerged as an unusually intelligent and wise man. As the building of the Kaaba was located in a low-lying valley, it was flooded during heavy rains, and was damaged. Therefore, the Quraysh decided to repair the damaged building of the Kaaba when the Prophet was in his early 30s. After most of the work was complete, a dispute arose among the Makkan chiefs about the fixing of the black stone, Hajar al-Aswad. An elderly Makkan Abu Umayyah suggested that the person entering the sacred mosque the following morning should be assigned the task of making a decision about this. The Prophet, as was predestined, was the first man to enter the harem the next morning. All tribal chiefs greeted him and asked him to resolve the dispute. The Prophet, acting quite intelligently, found a peaceful solution. He spread a sheet on the ground, placed the black stone on it, asked every tribal chief to hold the sheet together, and himself placed the stone in its place. This surprised everyone, and a possible fight among the tribes was averted. Things, however, would soon start changing for the worse. At 40, in 610 AD, Hazrat Muhammad was formally awarded prophethood. After some time, he was divinely instructed to preach, expound openly what you are commanded. 15 hours 94 minutes, Al-Hijjah. Accordingly, he began public preaching and, with this, the behavior of the Makkans also changed. They initially ignored him, then ridiculed him by saying, "The unbelievers say, these are nothing but tales of the ancients." 625, Al-Anam, 831, Al-Anfal. For them, Hazrat Muhammad did not preach anything new but the same old stories that many reformers had done earlier. As time passed, the Makkans got more furious on the firmness and steadfastness of the Prophet. They started a campaign of persecutions against him and his followers. Leading chiefs of Quraysh like Abu Jahl, Abu Lahab, Umayyah bin Khalaf, Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt, Walid bin Mughira and Aswad bin Abd Yaghut took the lead in creating difficulties for him. They covered with thorns the lanes he passed through. He was mocked by them whenever he offered prayers. When he bowed down into prostration, they would bury him under the dead entrails of a camel, and they would pass a sheet of cloth around his neck and drag him so hard that his neck was bruised. When he recited the Quran, they abused him as well as the Quranic verses. Abu Lahab usually interrupted his preaching as he addressed an audience in public. Uqba bin Abi Mu'ayt roped his neck with a sheet of cloth and pulled at it when the Prophet was offering prayer in the harem. Hazrat Abu Bakr rescued the Prophet and said to Uqba, "You kill a man who merely says that God is one." He was titled as a magician, poet, a man possessed by spirits in order to keep him from preaching. God sent Surah 53, Al-Najm, in his defense that says, "Your companion Muhammad has not strayed, nor has he erred nor does he speak anything on his own." 53:2-3, he was ridiculed on the death of his second son from Hazrat Khadija, and called him Abtar, a man without progeny. Similarly, he was mocked during a period of an unusual delay in receiving revelation till he received Surah 93, Al-Duha. The Quraysh tried to bribe him by sending Utbah bin Rabi'ah. He tried to bargain with him by offering him worldly wealth and power. The Prophet in turn recited these verses, "This is a revelation from God, a book whose verses are explained in detail, giving glad tidings and warning, but most of them turn away and say, our hearts are screened from that to which you invite us." 41:1-5, Fusilat, Utbah left in despair, and told the event to other chiefs. Then the Quraysh imposed a boycott on his tribe, Banu Hashim, from 616 to 619 AD. His uncle Abu Talib and wife Khadija died at the end of the boycott. This emboldened the Quraysh as Abu Talib's death had deprived the Prophet of the tribal protection. The Prophet would be changing his strategy after this tragic loss. B. The Prophet had established his unquestionable repute as an exceptionally noble man under a divine scheme. The Quraysh never doubted his conduct as they had always seen him a noble and pious man even before his prophetic mission. They had also witnessed the Prophet's marriage with Hazrat Khadija was a result of his thorough honesty. They had seen utmost degree of honesty of the Prophet on several occasions, and thus never doubted his character. The main reason they opposed and rejected him was his preaching of Tawhid and ethics that they found difficult to follow as they had been following the corrupt practices for centuries. Moreover, they had political and economic reasons to resist him as they feared the Prophet's success meant loss of the privileges they enjoyed as a gang of priests of Makkah. Therefore, they did not stop the old tradition of keeping their belongings with him after he began preaching Islam. 4a. The Prophet paired Muslims of Makkah and from Medina after the migration, Hijra. Give examples to show the character of the relationship between various emigrants and helpers. 10. B. Today Muslims often seek refuge in neighboring countries. show how the examples of the emigrants and helpers can still provide a model today. 4. A. The Prophet paired the Muhajirin with the Ansar in a wise way. When the construction of the Prophet's mosque was nearing completion, he summoned the two communities at the house of Hazrat Anas bin Malik. By then the total number of migrants was 45, as there were many already settled in Abyssinia since 615 AD. The Prophet said to the Ansar, "These, Muhajirin, are your brothers." Then he called one from the Muhajirin and one from the Ansari, and declared, "Each of you is a brother to the other." The Ansar took their brothers in faith to their homes, gathered all their stock and shared the whole equally. The Ansar mainly earned by cultivating their oases, but the Muhajirin were mainly traders and knew nothing about agriculture. So, it was decided that the Ansar would manage the whole business and give half the produce to the Muhajirin. Some of the major examples of this pairing include some of the very prominent companions. Abu Bakr with Kharija bin Zayd, Umar bin Khattab with Itban bin Malik, Uthman with Aus bin Thabit, and Musabi bin Umair with Abu Ayyub. While pairing the two communities, the Prophet paired those who had common interests, skills, and had the same socio-economic status. Primarily, each Muhajir was to act as a teacher to his Ansari brother. So, Hazrat Sa'id bin Zayd, one of the earliest converts and a highly learned man, was paired with Hazrat Ubay bin Ka'b, who emerged as a major scribe of the Prophet. Hazrat Abu Hudayfa was the son of a very powerful Makkan chief. He was, accordingly, paired with Hazrat Abad bin Bishr, the tribal chief of Ashhal. Hazrat Abu Ubaidah was gifted with military skills and ability to excel as a leader. He was made brother of Hazrat Sa'd bin Mu'ad, the chief of Aws tribe. Hazrat Abd Rahman bin Auf had inherited business skills. His bond was made with a rich Ansari, Hazrat Sa'd bin Rabi, who offered one of his two wives to his Muhajir brother, but Hazrat Abd Rahman declined the offer. He, instead, requested Hazrat Sa'd to guide him to the market, who took him to the famous bazaar of Banu Kainuka. There he purchased some cheese and ghee, and retailed it all the day. In a short time, he had earned so much that he got married. Gradually his business flourished so much that he built a house that resembled a fortress. Hazrat Abu Bakr set up a cloth shop in Sun, whereas Hazrat Uthman dealt in dates and soon became a rich trader. Hazrat Umar also established his business, and his trade visits extended to Persia. Muhajirin were allotted vacant plots lying unused near the houses of the Ansar. Those Ansar who had no spare plots shared their houses with their brothers in faith. Hazrat Uthman, Miqdad and Ubaid got lands closer to the Ansar's houses. This brotherhood was treated as real kinship. On the death of an Ansari, his property was inherited by his Muhajir brother, and this tradition was based on the Quranic command, "They who believed in God and migrated and fought in the way of God with all their wealth and life, and those who gave them shelter and helped them, are brothers of each other." 8:10, Al-Anfal. However, after the Battle of Badr this practice was abandoned by another Quranic verse, "Those having blood relations are more entitled to each other's inheritance." 8 hours 75 minutes, Al-Anfal. Interestingly, Hazrat Ali was left unpaired after all the arrangements. When he told the Prophet about this, the Prophet declared him his brother in faith. This shows the unusual closeness of Hazrat Ali to the Prophet. However, it should be noted that with time the condition of the Muhajirin began to improve. After the expulsion of the Jews of Banu al-Nadir, their oases and orchards were given to the Muhajirin with the permission of the Ansar. Later, after the conquest of Khaybar, the Muhajirin returned these assets to the Ansar. The hospitality and generosity of the Ansar is admired by the Quran. As for those who had settled in the city and embraced the faith before the arrival of the emigrants, they love whoever immigrates to them. 59:9, Al-Hashr, unprecedented in the world history. When Bahrain was conquered, the Prophet offered the land to the Ansar, but they asked him to give equal share to their Muhajir brothers, too. Thus, a unique kind of fraternity was established by Islam that was based on common faith. B. Mawakat is a living institute established by the greatest reformer of humankind. Its relevance can be seen in modern times in many Muslim states. Pakistani Muslims revived the spirit of this universal brotherhood in the 1980s when they provided food, shelter, and clothing to the Afghan refugees who migrated to Pakistan, leaving all their assets behind. Many Pakistanis set up joint business with them, acting on this instruction of the Prophet, "O you servants of God, be brothers." Muslims living anywhere in the world should follow the example of the Ansar by helping fellow Muslims migrating to their countries, especially if the emigrants leave their homelands due to persecutions and threat to their lives. They should demonstrate generosity by giving them some charity or at least extend the Qaza Hasana interest-free loan. This will give them peace of mind and hope of greater reward by God. 5a. Write about the role of Umar in the lifetime of the Prophet. 10b. What lessons can Muslims learn from Umar's conversion? 4. Ans. A. Hazrat Umar belonged to the Banu Adi branch of the Quraysh. He was a fierce and powerful man in Makkah, known for his physical strength, wealth, poetry, and oratorship. He was opposed to Islam. It is reported that the Prophet had prayed to God for the conversion of either Amr bin Hisham, Abu Jahl, or Umar bin al-Khattab. God granted his prayer as Umar embraced Islam in a dramatic way. He embraced Islam by about 615 AD, shortly after the conversion of Hazrat Hamza. According to a popular tradition, he left his home with a plan to kill the Prophet, but on his way, was told by Nu'aym bin Abdullah about the conversion of his sister Fatima and her husband Hazrat Sa'id by Zayd. Umar rushed to Fatima's home, and there he heard Khabab bin Arat reciting Surah 20, Toha. He stormed the house, and, driven by anger, beat Fatima so much that she began to bleed. His heart was softened, and he asked for the sheets of the Quran. He washed his hands, and read the Quranic verses written on a sheet. Having a strong poetic sense, Umar was impressed by the rhyming pattern of the surah, and its spiritual charm. He decided to embrace Islam. Hazrat Khabab, who was hiding in a small room, came out and told Umar about the Prophet's invocation. Umar approached the Prophet at the house of Al-Arqam, near Safa Hill. The Prophet used to teach the newly converted Muslims in this house. Therefore, it was also called Darul al-Islam, House of Islam. A companion saw him coming with a naked sword, and told the Prophet about him. Hazrat Hamza said, "Let him come. He is welcome if he has good intentions, otherwise, he will be beheaded with his sword." Much to the surprise of all, Hazrat Umar submitted to Islam. He is believed to be the last person to embrace Islam at this house. His conversion raised the morale of the Muslims as he declared his conversion to the Quraysh. Muslims, therefore, began to offer prayer openly after his conversion. The Prophet gave him the title Al-Faruq, the one who makes a distinction between the truth and falsehood. The Prophet further acknowledged Umar's nobility by saying, "God placed truth upon the tongue of Umar and his heart." His conversion greatly infuriated the Quraysh, and their opposition to Islam became more intense. Hazrat Umar showed his courage again when he migrated to Medina openly, and none of the pagans dared to block his way. In Medina, he remained a strong source of protecting the Prophet. He participated in all the battles. In the Battle of Badr, he shared camel with Abu Bakr and Abd Rahman bin Auf. After this battle, he gave his widowed daughter Hafsa in marriage to the Prophet. In the Battle of Uhud, he was part of the human shield made by the close companions around the Prophet. He participated in the digging of the ditch in 5 627 AD before the Battle of Kandak. He was unhappy over the terms of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, as he thought they did not favor the Muslims. He was, however, calmed down by Abu Bakr and later, by the Prophet, who recited the revelation he had just received. "We indeed granted you a clear victory." 48:1, Al-Fatih. This was a glad tiding of the ultimate success of Islam, and Hazrat Umar was pacified. According to the commentators of the Quran, many verses of the Quran are related to Hazrat Umar. For example, the verse about offering prayer at the station of Ibrahim was revealed after Umar had asked the Prophet about the history of that sacred stone, station of Ibrahim, and make you the station of Ibrahim as a place of prayer. 2:125, Al-Baqarah. Similarly, the verses about the observance of hijab by the wives of Prophet were also revealed after Umar had expressed his desire for the same. He had noted Hazrat Sauda going out of her apartment after the Isha prayer and drawn her attention towards observance of hijab. The verse says, "O Prophet, tell your wives and daughters and the believing women that they should cast their outer garments when going out." 33:59, Al-Azab, the Prophet is reported to have admired Umar on many occasions. For example, a hadith of Jami' Tirmidhi says, "The sun has not risen on a better man than Umar." Umar, like several other Muslims, found it hard to believe in the death of the Prophet, but when Abu Bakr recited 3:144, he had to accept the reality. B. Conversion of Hazrat Umar teaches Muslims God's power and decree. He was an open and fierce enemy of Islam, but was predestined to become a Muslim. His mind was changed on hearing the Quranic verses. Being an educated man with a refined poetic taste, he was convinced that such verses could not be composed by any human. This is testified by the Quran itself. "Had we sent down this Quran on a mountain, O Muhammad, you would have seen it humbled and torn apart by the awe of God." 59:21, Al-Hashr, Muslims should, therefore, ponder over the meanings and power of the Quran. Hazrat Umar knew well how hostile the Quraysh were to Islam, but he made his conversion public. Muslims today should not fear the consequences of declaring their faith. They should trust in God, and remember none can harm them as long as God is with them. They should dedicate all their energies to the cause of Islam. October 2015, 11. 1. Chose any two of the following passages from the Quran, and a. Briefly describe the main themes in each passages. 4. b. Briefly explain the importance of the themes in a Muslim's life today. 4. ANS. A. Themes. 1. 96:1-5. These 5 verses of Surah Iqra al-Alaq are the first ever revelation that the Prophet received in the cave Hira in Ramadan 610 AD. The remaining 6 verses were revealed later when the Prophet began to offer regular prayer in the precincts of the Kaaba. The command of "read in the name of your Lord" in the first verse means the Prophet was already familiar with one supreme God. The word alaq was traditionally translated as a clot of congealed blood. In modern times it refers to the primary state of embryo. The next verses mention God's power to create humans from a humble origin and mature them to acquire worldly knowledge by using the pen. The ability to read and write shaped human intellectual evolution over the ages. The last verse points to God's will to grant humans spiritual knowledge through divine revelation as and when it was required for humans. 2. Surah 99. Many commentators believe it to be a late Makkan surah, but some others regard it an early Madanian surah. The surah focuses on 3 main aspects of the end of time. First, it alerts humans about the initial horrible signs of the beginning of the Day of Judgment. They include the terrible convulsions the earth will experience. The earth will throw up all its contents. Another Quranic verse mentions the same as, "and when the earth is flattened and casts forth what is within it." 84:3-4, Al-Inshikak. Secondly, it informs humans about the earth bearing witness to all their deeds, much to their surprise. Humans will be shocked and distressed to see all this, as they had never imagined anything like this. Finally, it presents the scene of the divine court where all will be categorized according to their good and evil deeds under the immaculate justice dispensed by God. Even the smallest possible deeds will be rewarded by God as He has arranged for the recording of each and every action of humans. 3. Surah 114. This is the last surah of the Quran revealed together with Surah 113. Both are called Al-Mu'awwizatan, the 2 protectors. Some traditions declare them to be the Makkan surahs, but relatively stronger sources prove them to be Madanian. Both teach Muslims not to have any fears of the supernatural and the unknown, the internal and external evils that may affect them. Surah 113 mentions God's protection from the visible evils. This surah, on the other hand, reassures Muslims of God's powers to protect them against the invisible or internal evil forces. Repetition of God's attributes in the first 3 verses implies God's special bond with humans. The remaining verses warn against Satan and mention his method of enticing humans. For this reason, the Quran repeatedly declares, "Verily Satan is an avowed enemy to man." 12:5, Yusuf. B. Importance of themes. 1. 96:1-5. These verses teach Muslims to acknowledge God's favors of creating humans from a low origin and then making them distinct from all other creatures by way of gaining knowledge. The gift of knowledge is so supreme that God commanded the angels to bow down before Adam because he was made superior due to the knowledge granted to him by God. The Quran states, "And he taught Adam the names of all things." 2:31-34, Al-Baqarah. According to many ahadith, pen was among the first ever creations of God. That is why Surah 68, Al-Kalam, begins with God vowing the pen. The Quran, at another place, endorses the superiority of humans in these words, "We have indeed created man in the best of molds," 95:4, Al-Tin. They need to remember that God alone blessed them in multiple ways, and so, they need to worship and be grateful to him. The verses highlight the importance of acquiring knowledge in order to keep their superior status. 2. Surah 99. This surah strengthens Muslims' belief in God's power to bring an end to time, and inculcates a genuine fear of accountability before him. The mention of intense convulsions experienced by the earth is in itself a horrifying thing to imagine. With such a belief, Muslims will learn about the worthlessness of this world and realize the value of true and eternal world. A strong fear of God and the hereafter will shape the conduct of Muslims so that they will obey his commands and not commit sins. If a believer has a true belief in the hereafter, he will not lose hope if he fails to get justice in this world. This belief will encourage him to avoid all possible evils. Similarly, he will try to do as many good deeds as possible because God promises greater rewards for good deeds. This Quranic verse describes the divine justice as, "Surely God does not do injustice to the weight of an atom, and if it is a good deed he multiplies it." 440, Al-Nisa. 3. Surah 114. This first word, Qul say, requires Muslims to be obedient to God, as that is the only way to seek his refuge against evil. A genuine obedience removes any arrogance towards God or a false belief of having control over their destinies. Once, the Prophet was riding a mule along with a companion. When the mule stumbled, the companion said, "May Satan perish." The Prophet said, "Do not say that. It encourages Satan, and he says, 'I knocked with my strength.' But if you say, 'In the name of God,' Satan is dwarfed and becomes like a fly." This means the remembrance of God guarantees defeat of Satan. The surah tells Muslims to beware of Satan injecting evil thoughts in their hearts. Therefore, they follow the Prophet's tradition by reciting the last two surahs regularly before going to bed. Regular recitation of the last two surahs acts as an antidote against all satanic forces, however stronger they might be. This is because of the fact that God has ultimate control over all forces. 2a. Using Quran passages you have studied from the syllabus, describe how God guided his messengers to increase their faith in him. Refer to at least two messengers in your answers. 10b. God sends humankind messengers from among their own communities. Explain why this is significant. 4a. The Holy Quran narrates stories of many of the prophetic messengers. Various Quranic surahs mention various messengers from Hazrat Adam to the Holy Prophet Muhammad. Passages set for special study are 2:30-37, Story of Hazrat Adam, 6:75-79, Story of Hazrat Ibrahim, and 5:110, Story of Jesus Christ. In addition to these, two passages exclusively deal with the Holy Prophet, Surahs 93 and 108. The Quran describes the story of Hazrat Ibrahim in a number of ways. At one place it describes the story of a divine scheme arranged for successful identity of one God, through the perspective of God's mighty creations. The passage, 6:75-79, outlines the ways through which God guided Hazrat Ibrahim to identify the Creator Lord through observing the laws by which God controls the heaven and the earth. The Quran states how God unfolded his existence to Hazrat Ibrahim by way of his observation marvels of nature, including various heavenly bodies, the stars, the sun, and the moon. In the beginning he got impressed by their shine, but as they began to lose it, God strengthened his belief about all these being his creatures. The passage also proves that Hazrat Ibrahim, like other messengers, was a man chosen by God because his intuitive progress of observing the celestial bodies and not accepting them as deities shows that it was all divinely ordained. God made arrangements for his birth in a polytheistic community that boasted of its knowledge about the heavenly bodies and Hazrat Ibrahim's quest in search of the truth that led him to identify God. Behold, he said to his father and his people, "What are these images, idols, to which you are devoted?" 21:52, Al-Anbiya. After this, Hazrat Ibrahim, like all other messengers, was rejected by his people who even tried to kill him, but he enjoyed special divine protection and miraculously survived in the blazing fire. We said, "O fire, be you cool and a means of safety for Hazrat Ibrahim." 21 hours 69 minutes, Al-Anbiya. Hazrat Ibrahim's prayer to create prophets from his progeny was also granted. A long line of messengers continued through his sons, Ismail and Ishaq. The Quran at many places describes the story of God strengthening the belief of Jesus Christ, Hazrat Isa. He was born miraculously, to his mother Mary, Hazrat Maryam, and was lifted alive to the heavens by God's command. The Quran says, he, Jibreel, said, "Nay, I am only a messenger from your Lord to announce to you the gift of a holy son." 19:19-20, Maryam. The passage 5:110 gives details of Jesus Christ's special association with God, and a variety of prophetic signs granted to him. These include his ability to speak from the cradle, the divine gift of the book and the wisdom, his ability to give life to the dead and the lifeless objects. Moreover, by God's command, he could cure the leper and the blind. This shows how God had decreed miraculous events for Jesus Christ to prove that messengers were no ordinary humans. The purpose of granting him powers was to tell the people about the powers of God and his special relationship with God. Finally, God made Jesus a living sign by saving him, but they killed him not, nor crucified him, but so it was made to appear to them. Nay, God raised him up. 4:157, Al-Nisa. B. According to the Quran, humans are the best creatures of God. We indeed created humans in the best form. 95:4, At-Tin. Therefore, only humans could be elevated to the status of God's messengers. Humans can best interact with fellow humans in their community. They could address them in their language and answer their questions accordingly. So, God's messengers preached his message comfortably to their communities, and were able to raise a team of sincere followers. Being God's chosen men, they were blessed to be infallible. This made them a role model for their fellows who could follow their teachings as well as their conduct. This trait reached its perfection in the last messenger of God, the Holy Prophet. If angels or jinns were sent as messengers, humans, moved by their awe and powers, might have started worshipping them. This would have killed the very purpose of sending the messengers, preaching Tawhid. 3a. Describe the events of the Battle of Uhud. 10. B. Success for Muslims depends on their obedience to the Prophet. Discuss this statement in relation to Muslims today. 4. A. The Quraysh wanted to avenge their defeat in the Battle of Badr as many pagans and had lost their relatives in that encounter. Abu Sufyan became the new military chief in Makkah. He was encouraged by all, including the famous Jewish poet Ka'b bin al-Ashraf, to attack Medina with full force. Women of the aggrieved families also joined the Makkan army. They included Hind bint Utha, wife of Abu Sufyan, Hakim, granddaughter of Abu Jahl, and Fatima, sister of Khalid bin Walid, were also part of the women wing. Thus Abu Sufyan was able to raise an army of 3,000 troops with 300 camels, 200 horses, and 700 coats of mail armor. The left and right wings were under the command of Ikrimah bin Abu Jahl and Khalid bin Walid respectively, while Amr bin al-As was the commander of the cavalry. Hind hired Washai bin Hob, the slave of Jubair bin Mut'im. He was assigned the mission of killing Hazrat Hamza, who had killed Hind's father in the Battle of Badr. This army reached north of Medina in March 625 AD, Shawwal 3 AH, and camped near the Uhud hill along the road to Syria. Hazrat Abbas sent all these details to the Prophet in a letter through a fast courier. Hazrat Hubab bin Munda Ansari was sent to find out the number of the enemy army. The Prophet consulted his followers and accepted the proposal of facing the enemy outside Medina. He recruited 1,000 troops and left for the Uhud Valley after the Friday prayer. On the way, the chief of hypocrites Abdullah bin Ubay deserted with his 300 troops on the excuse that their houses were unsafe back in Medina. The Prophet camped with 700 troops on the western slope of the Mount Uhud. Hazrat Musabi bin Umair was made the flag-bearer, Hazrat Zubayr commander of the right wing, and the horsemen. The left wing was under Hazrat Mundir bin Amr. The Prophet appointed 50 archers under Hazrat Abdullah bin Jubayr on a narrow passage at the back of the Muslim army. They were strictly instructed not to leave unless ordered by the Prophet. The Quran mentions the Prophet's strategy as, "Remember that morning you left your household to post the faithful at their station for the battle." 3:121, Al-Imran. In the Makkan army, Khalid bin Walid was the commander of the right wing, whereas the left was under Ikrimah bin Abu Jahl. Safwan bin Umayyah led the cavalry, while Talha was the flag-bearer. In the single combats, Hazrat Ali and Hazrat Hamza killed Talha and Uthman from the pagan army. With this began the general fight, and Hazrat Hamza, Hazrat Ali, and Hazrat Abu Dujana, a famous wrestler, broke into the enemy ranks. Muslim attack was fierce and the Quraysh began to retreat. Muslims continued to press the enemy and began to collect the spoils. When the 50 archers saw this, 36 of them also left their position and began to collect the booty. The Quran refers to these Muslims in these words, "When you, with his, Allah's, permission were about to annihilate your enemy until you, the archers, flinched and fell to disputing about the order and disobeyed it." 3:152, Al-Imran. Khalid bin Walid quickly mobilized his troops and attacked through the passage. This changed the scene, and the retreating Makkans also made a counter-attack as they saw Khalid's powerful attack on Muslims. Many Muslims were killed, including Hazrat Hamza, who was martyred by Washai bin Hob. Washai hurled at him his spear through his navel. Hazrat Hamza tried to advance but fell down as martyr. Hind mutilated the dead body of Hazrat Hamza by chewing out his liver. In the panic, Hazrat Musabi bin Umair, who resembled the Prophet closely, was killed, and it was rumored that the Prophet had been martyred. The Prophet was also wounded, and lost one tooth. All this disheartened the Muslims, but soon Hazrat Ka'b bin Malik identified the Prophet and many Muslims rushed to him. Abdullah bin Kamiya struck the Prophet so hard that 2 links of the helmet got pierced into his face. A group of 20 companions made a shield around the Prophet and quickly climbed towards the hilltop. Hazrat Ali and Hazrat Fatima dressed the wounds of the Prophet. Hazrat Aisha, Sulaim and Salit served water to the injured Muslims. Abu Sufyan shouted, "This day we are avenged for bad." His army had killed 70 Muslims and left for Makkah, challenging to fight the next year. The Prophet reorganized his army and began to bury the martyred Muslims. The Quraysh lost only 22 soldiers. B. Muslims are required to remember this Quranic injunction: whoever obeys the messenger indeed obeys God. 4 hours 80 minutes, Al-Nisa. Muslims today should remember that fight against enemies of Islam is only in the way of God. Spoils or booty come as a bonus, as they are not the real objective of armed jihad. In the Battle of Uhud, most of the 50 archers did not wait for the permission of the Prophet to leave their place, and the whole Muslim army paid the price of their mistake. Muslims should follow the code of conduct of war as taught by the Prophet. This will bring them a guaranteed success, as non-Muslims will be impressed by the teachings of Islam. In times of peace, they should follow the Prophet's guidelines by being obedient to God, observing pillars of Islam, caring for others and being polite and humble. 4a. The Prophet entered Makkah and took control of it in 8 Describe the main details of this event. 10b. The Prophet's characteristic of mercy was clearly demonstrated in this event. Is it realistic to expect Muslims today to follow his example? 4. A. The Quraysh helplessly watched the growth of Islam after the Truce of Al-Hudaybiyah. Encouraged by the defeat of Muslims in the Battle of Mu'tah, September 629 AD 8 they incited their ally Banu Bakr to attack Banu Quza, who were the ally of Muslims. The Makkan chiefs who provided them weapons included Ikrimah bin Abu Jahl, Safwan bin Umayyah, Sohail bin Amr and others. Consequently, several men of Banu Bakr attacked Banu Quza at night when they were asleep. Banu Quza sought shelter in the Kaba, but the chief of Banu Bakr, Nawfal, commanded them to continue their mission. Thus, many innocent people of Banu Quza were unjustly killed. The matter was reported to the Prophet by the chief of Banu Quza, Amr bin Salim, who had rushed to Medina with his 40 men. The Prophet, according to the customs of justice, demanded the Quraysh to pay the blood money, diyar, to Banu Quza or break their alliance with that tribe or dissolve the truce. The first two options went against the prestige and tradition of the Quraysh. Carter bin Umar on behalf of the Quraysh that only the last condition would be acceptable. However, they realized their mistake and sent Abu Sufyan to Medina to settle the issue. Abu Sufyan first went to the Prophet and requested him to renew the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. The Prophet gave no reply. He met his daughter, Ramla Habiba, one of the wives of the Prophet, but she refused to help him. He then asked Hazrat Abu Bakr and Hazrat Umar to intercede, but they too refused. He approached Hazrat Fatima, who was sitting with her son Hazrat Hassan, and tried to emotionally pressurize her by way of Hazrat Hassan. She too could not give any reassurance to him. Finally, at the insistence of Hazrat Ali, he came to the Prophet's mosque and announced that he had renewed the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. The Prophet was fully determined to take decisive action against the Quraysh. He made secret preparations to attack Makkah and raised a huge army of about 10,000 as many Bedouin tribes joined him on his way to Makkah. In January 630, he marched towards Makkah and camped at the hills of Mar al-Zaran in the outskirts of Makkah. There, at night, he ordered his troops to light torches. This was a clever military tactic as the size of the army looked magnified when the Makkans looked at it from a distance. They abandoned any hope of resisting the Muslims. Abu Sufyan, perhaps on spying mission, was captured and taken to the Prophet and embraced Islam. Next morning the Prophet divided his army into 4 columns and placed each column under a capable commander, one under himself, one under Abu Ubaidah, one under Khalid bin Walid and one given to Sa'd bin Ubadah. He strictly forbade use of arms unless the Makkans attacked. He declared 3 places of safety for every Makkan, one's own house, Abu Sufyan's house and the Kaba. The army entered Makkah unresisted except for Khalid's column. Attack on his column led to death of 2 Muslims and 13 Makkans. The Prophet performed tawaf of the Kaba, went inside to pray and then destroyed 360 idols and other paintings and images. He was assisted by Ali in smashing idols and recited this, and say the truth has prevailed and falsehood perished, for surely falsehood is bound to perish. 17 hours 81 minutes, Al-Isra, he came out to address the Quraysh in the compound. He said, O people of Quraysh, God has abolished the haughtiness of the Jahiliyyah and its veneration of ancestors. People all sprang from Adam and Adam came from dust. Then he recited, O mankind, we have created you from a single pair of a male and a female. The most honored of you in the sight of God is he who is the most righteous of you. 49:13 Al-Hujurat. The Prophet then delivered a sermon about fundamentals of Islam from the Safa hill and asked the Quraysh what they expected from him. They replied, You are a noble brother and a son of a noble brother. The Prophet stunned them by saying, No blame on you be this day. Go, you are free. Thus a general pardon was declared for all except about 10 blasphemous men. They included Habba bin Aswad, Mikyas Sababa Lathai, Huwairith bin Nukaid, Abdullah Hilal, Abdullah bin Qatal and some others including 4 women. However, according to many sources only 4 of them were executed. Almost whole of Makkah submitted to the fold of Islam including the worst enemies like Ikrimah bin Abu Jahl, Washai bin Hob, Hamza's killer, and hind wife of Abu Sufyan. The Prophet stayed in Makkah for about 20 days to make arrangements for its administration. He redefined the boundaries of the Haram-i Kaba by erecting pillars. Most of the offices of the Quraysh were abolished except for the Sakaya, serving water to pilgrims, that was given back to Al-Abbas and the key of the Kaba returned to Uthman bin Talha of Banu Abd Dar. B. The Prophet's attributes of mercy, kindness and forgiveness will keep inspiring Muslims in all ages. The Quran instructs Muslims, "You have indeed in the Messenger of God a beautiful pattern of conduct." 33:21, Al-Azab, Muslims can forgive their past enemies with a strong hope of reward in both the worlds. By doing so, they can win the hearts of not only their enemies but also become a role model for many. In tribal areas of Pakistan, rival parties keep breeding grudge against each other and set a vicious cycle of enmity. They should be peacefully invited to study the life of the Prophet, and told such a culture was the hallmark of the age of ignorance. Therefore, if they claim to be genuine Muslims, they should abandon hostility and promote a culture of fraternal love. 5a. Give an account of the lives of Ali bin Abu Talib and Zayd bin Haritha during the life of the Prophet. 10b. To what extent do Ali and Zayd's relationships with the Prophet provide models for family relations today? 4. A. Hazrat Ali bin Abu Talib. Hazrat Ali was a cousin of the Prophet. The Prophet took Hazrat Ali as a child to his home in order to relieve the burden of Abu Talib, who was facing financial difficulties. Thus Hazrat Ali was blessed with the close company of the Prophet from a very young age. When the Prophet proclaimed prophethood before his relatives, only Hazrat Ali stepped forward and embraced Islam, being second or 3th Muslim. He was 10 or 11 then, and the Quraysh laughed at Ali being made an emir that they should obey. His conversion at such a young age shows his boldness and the Prophet's trust in him. He stood by the Prophet during the persecutions and the social boycott. When the Prophet decided to migrate to Medina, he asked Hazrat Ali to sleep in his bed as decoy and return belongings to their owners the following morning. In Medina, when the Prophet was pairing Muhajirin with Ansar by Marwakat, he declared Hazrat Ali as his brother in faith. Hazrat Ali set several examples in almost all the battles. In the Battle of Badr, he fought in single combats together with Hazrat Hamza and Hazrat Abu Ubaidah. He killed many pagans. In the Battle of Uhud, he became the flag-bearer after the martyrdom of the first flag-bearer. After the battle, Hazrat Ali and Hazrat Fatima washed the wound of the Prophet. In the Battle of the Trench, he repulsed the band of the Makkans who had crossed the ditch and killed some of them. Hazrat Ali played decisive role in the conquest of Khyber by killing Mahab, the famous Jewish commander and custodian of the fort of Camus. He was given the title Asadullah, Lion of God, by the Prophet. He was the scribe of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah in 6 628 AD. He was also a major scribe of the Quran. He was one of the flag-bearers of the army that conquered Makkah in 8 630 AD. He also assisted the Prophet in smashing the idols in the Kaaba. When the Prophet raised an army for the Tabuk expedition, Hazrat Ali was not included in it, but the Prophet consoled him by saying, "You are to me just as Harun was to Musa, except that there will be no prophet after me." When Hajj became obligatory in 10 the Prophet received some verses of Surah 9, Al-Tawbah, and he asked Hazrat Ali to read out the verses to the Muslims. Same year he was appointed Qazi, judge, of Yemen by the Prophet. The Prophet acknowledged Ali's wisdom by saying, "The most learned in legal matters is Ali." While returning from farewell pilgrimage, the Prophet stayed at Gadiakum, delivered a short speech, then raised his hand in his hand and said, "Of whomsoever I am Lord friend, Mawla, this Ali is his Lord friend too." Sharia Muslims take it as an indication by the Prophet to appoint Hazrat Ali his successor. During the last days of the Prophet's life, he attended to him fully, and on his death, washed his body and lowered it into the grave. Hazrat Zayd bin Haritha. Zayd was born around 576 to 581 AD to Haritha bin Sharahil and Suda bint Ta'alaba. He accompanied his mother to visit her relatives at a very young age. He was kidnapped and sold to Hazrat Khadija's nephew, who gave him to his aunt. After Khadija's marriage, Zayd was presented to the Prophet by her. After some years, Zayd's relatives reached Makkah and recognized him near the Kaaba. When they approached him, he refused to go back to his family. Then Zayd became a freed man, and would now be called as Zayd bin Muhammad as per the Arab custom of those days. When the Prophet formally declared prophethood in 610, Zayd was the fourth convert to Islam. Zayd was married to Ayman, Baraka, the freed slave girl of the Prophet. Zayd accompanied the Prophet in 620 when the Prophet visited Al-Taif. He continuously protected the Prophet from the stones pelted at him by the people of the town. After the Prophet's migration to Medina, he was sent to Mecca to bring the Prophet's wives, and his daughters Kulthum and Fatima. Zayd married the Prophet's cousin, Zainab bint Jahsh, in 625 AD. Zainab was uncomfortable with Zayd's background as a slave. So the marriage proved unsuccessful and ended in divorce after 1 year. Soon after this, the revelation of 33:37, God allowed the Prophet to marry Hazrat Zainab. Similarly, the legal status of the adopted son was also explained in the same surah, call them adopted sons, by the names of their fathers. That is more than just in the sight of God. 33:5, Al-Azab. He participated in the battles of Badr, Uhud and Kandak, and was also present on the signing of the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. In 8 AH, Hazrat Zayd was martyred in the Battle of Mu'tah. B. The Prophet extended fatherly love to Hazrat Ali in order to ease the burden of Hazrat Abu Talib. He acted as his mentor and educated him in all worldly and spiritual affairs. Muslims today can follow the Prophet by sharing the burden of their relatives. The Prophet had been brought up as an orphan by Hazrat Abu Talib, and by taking Hazrat Ali under his custody, the Prophet acknowledged his uncle's special love his orphan nephew. Muslims today can educate and train the unsupported relatives in order to strengthen family ties. Hazrat Zayd was adopted by the Prophet and treated him as his son. Muslims today need to learn that irrespective of blood relationship, young unsupported fellows can be brought up as their own children. Once a child is adopted, she should never feel any discrimination by the parents or siblings. This will make such young people healthy members of the community. May 2016,